right, so first off, all praise to Yahweh, in the name of his son, Yahweh Shai, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Double honors to my elders, apostles, and the bishops of Great Millstone, otherwise known as GMS for short, and also known as the prophets of doom. These are where I have learned this truth and where I am still learning this truth. And also shalom to the remnant and the elect of Israel. Lord willing, I am of that number. And today's video is going to be in Revelation 13, the 13th chapter, verses 1 through 8. Actually, we might do 1 through 10, and then again, when we finish this chapter, Lord willing, we'll start at 9 and 10 again, okay, of Revelation 13. But so far, we've read about uh, the subject matter of these last few videos or so, all right, have been on the subject of the beast. We started in the beast or beasts with an S, okay? We started in Daniel 2 with the vision that Nebuchadnezzar had all the way back in the Assyrian Babylonian kingdom. And then we read Daniel 7, okay, where he went into more detail about the beasts that he's seen, okay? Another vision, or a vision that he had about the beasts. We did readings of this in King James, the NLT, and the GNT, which is a Good News Translation. The NLT is the New Living Translation, and of course the King James version, okay? This time we're going to continue on with that topic, but we're going to read here in Revelation chapter 13. Okay, Lord willing, even after this video, we'll do readings in these other translations, maybe, Lord willing, but also we will finish this chapter out. All right, the beginning of this chapter speaks of Rome, and the second half of this chapter speaks of the second leg of Rome. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to it. This is Revelation chapter 13 in the King James Version. I will read the summary of the whole chapter, even though we're only going to read through verses 10 or verse 11 or 10, I mean. Okay, so chapter 13 summary says, a beast riseth out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns, to whom the dragon giveth his power. And other beast cometh up out of the earth, causeth an image to be made of the former beast, and that men should worship it and receive his mark. All right, which we'll get into this, but just to mention it now, and we've talked about this before, all right, as have other brothers over and over again in videos, all right, where you have the beast, which is a dominion, a rulership, okay, kings, kingdoms, okay, and then you have the image of the beast, which is your manner of life, all right. If you live by your philosophies and your beliefs, all right, the image of the beast is your manner of life, all right. Walking in the image of the Lord is walking in a certain manner, is having a certain manner of life. Okay, and then you have the mark of the beast, which is a badge, something showing that you belong to, all right, this dominion, this rulership, this power that runs this earth. Okay, and that's just summarizing. All right, so let's go ahead and read Revelation chapter 13, starting at verse 1. This is John the Revelator on the Isle of Patmos receiving visions. Okay, so it reads, and I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So what are we talking about here? All right, again, like we explained in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, these beasts represent dominion, okay? Rulership, dominion over the earth, an empire at the time, okay? So this beast has 10 horns, or 7 heads. All right, what are the 7 heads? This is speaking of Rome. All right, so back in other times of Rome, the 7 heads were the Roman Empire. All right, and we're talking about the Edomite Empire as a whole now. All right, Rome included. All right, so 7 heads were Rome. All right, Greece. Okay, the French, the Spanish, the British, Germania Major and Germania Minor. All right, Edomite strongholds. All right. Also, upon his horns, okay, it said having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. Again, speaking about vassal states. We spoke about what the definition of a vassal state was. We're not going to go into it tonight, but Lord willing, in another video, we'll go ahead and touch on all the things that we went over so far, at least some of the things, okay, like the definition of a vassal state. But what I do have here, okay, are the 10 heads at the time of the Roman Empire, all right? So the 10 horns at the time of Rome, which are vassal states, all right? The 10 horns, okay, and upon these horns you had 10 crowns, that represented smaller rulerships, okay? They were just horns. They were on top of these beasts' head, but the heads of the beasts were the major nations in that vassal state nation, larger or more powerful nation relationship. All right, so the smaller nations that were also little tinier rulerships that helped keep this beast afloat. Okay, at the time of Rome, it was the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, the Alemanni, the Franks, the Visigoths, the Burgundians, the Lombards, the Anglo-Saxons, the Suevi, and the Heruli. Okay, those were the 10 heads. Okay, again the 7 head, or the 10 horns. Excuse me. Again, the 7 heads were the Greeks, the Romans, Germania Major, Germania Minor, the British, the French, and the Spanish. Okay. All right. Again, it said, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. I did want to get the definition of blasphemy, but we'll go into this in more detail. I just want to read this so you are familiar and you can see how Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and now here in Revelation 13, these things all line up, all right? They all line up. And this is how we can tell who are who, because of prophecy, okay? Because of prophecy, that's how we can say so-called this and that, all right? So verse 2, it says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. Again, the Edomite Empire, all right, the Edomites' rule started to, all right, come into power with the Greeks, okay? That's why it says like unto a leopard, all right? And also the Roman Empire was pretty swift at doing what it had to do also, okay? But it says was like unto a leopard because it's pointing to that Greek Empire. It says his feet were as the feet of a bear, right? The feet of a thing is the end of a thing, okay? So when this kingdom comes down as a whole, all right, the Edomite Empire, all right, it's going to be the Russians, all right, which are represented by this bear, all right. It says, and in his mouth as the mouth of a lion, all right. They and oh, hold on, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and his authority. So that dragon represents Rome, right? Remember, Rome was one of the 7 heads, okay? And they have power through what? The sword. Remember, Edom's blessing was the sword, or is the sword. Verse 3, it says, and I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. Now, what does that mean? This is talking about the Western Roman Empire when it went down. Okay, people thought that it went down completely, but it did not. That's why it mentions the deadly wound being healed, because now in this time, this is the second leg of Rome. All right, this American or this country over here, America. All right, the U.S. of A. is the second leg of the Roman Empire, and thus being that deadly wound was healed. Now, when did that deadly wound start to heal? It was during the time of the Renaissance period. Now, again, I don't have the laptop on me right now, but we'll go over this again, and we'll point this out in more detail. All right, right now this is just a reading and a refresher of what we read in Daniel 2, all right, to Daniel 7, and now again here in Revelation 13. All right, and verse 3 again, and I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Okay, they have you noticing that they do have military might. Okay, all the things that Rome stood for, even if it's absorbed from these other empires, there are things that are against the Lord. All right, back up in here, verse 1, it mentioned, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy, and things that are against our power, all right, that go against the Lord, which are these holidays, all right, just for an example. Okay, everything is mixed up now. Okay, so that's how you are caused to worship the beast. Okay, let me see. That's how you're caused to wander after the beast, excuse me. All right. Verse 4 says, and they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? All right, why is that? Again, that's pointing to their uh, uh, blessing, okay, being the sword. Okay, who can fight with the beast? Okay, who can fight with this dominion that's going on in this world, whether it be the Roman Empire or this one, the second leg of the Roman Empire? It's the same thing. All right, you cannot mess with these people's military. Okay. As a matter of fact, when the Medes, all right, when the bear, remember I said the feet of a bear, and I said the feet are the end of a thing. When this place gets taken down, yes, Russia's going to be the head of that. All right, letting this place have it. All right, along with all their other countries. All right, even some of the so-called friends of this place are going to let loose on this place. That's because the Spirit of the Lord is going to be on their weaponry. All right, that's why this place is going to be turned into the lake of fire. Okay, but right now, for the longest time, people haven't wanted to step up to the plate. All right, step into the square with America. I mean, they may have wanted to, but they know that they couldn't. All right, they would have got wiped off the map. All right, so that's what it means by when it says, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? All right, no one was able to touch this Edomite empire due to the blessing. All right, verse 5 of Revelation 13, it says, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Okay, verse 6, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against our power. Okay, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, to blaspheme his name. Now, what do people call the Lord and his Son? God and Jesus. Okay, and his tabernacle. When you look at paintings like the Last Supper, paintings like the finger of God or the finger of Adam, I keep getting that title mixed up. All right, when the world thinks of the Messiah, and a certain image comes to, or certain pictures come to their mind. All right, that's them blaspheming the Lord. All right, his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. Okay, blaspheme the angels in that finger of Adam or the finger of God picture. All right, they got little naked ass angels floating around. Little pale naked ass angels floating around. All right. So that's blaspheming the Lord's name, his temple or his tabernacle, and them that dwelt in heaven. Okay. It says, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given over him, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. At the time of the Roman Empire, they ruled the whole known world. Again, we'll go over this more so with the laptop, all right? But they conquered the whole known world, and no one could touch them, all right? When they fell from within, okay? That helped conquer them, okay? And prophecy, okay? They can only stand for so long before they will fall. Verse 8 of Revelation 13, it says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. All right, they're not written in the book of life. Okay, and who is that Lamb? It is Yahweh Shai, all right, the Messiah. They're not written in the book of life. The ones who worship this dominion, the ones who fall in place, fall in line with this dominion and start worshiping the things that they worship. All right, they're not written in the book of life. All right, verse 9, it says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. All right, if you have any kind of understanding, let you hear what's being said here, actually. All right, let you understand the Lord's words. That's what's being said in verse 9. Verse 10 goes into it even more. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. All right, there is no peace coming to Esau, man. All right, this cup is being given to him doubly. All right, they got what they got coming. There's nothing that anybody can do to get them out of this. They are not going to remove their necks from what the Lord has ready for them. Okay. So again, we're going to go over this again, more so with the laptop, but just to give a quick refresher over the Daniel 2, okay, all the way to Daniel 7, all the way here to Revelation chapter 13. All right, we're speaking of the beasts, which when the prophets saw the beasts, they saw actual beasts. But in this day, the men of the Lord can explain to you what that is. Okay, they can explain to you exactly what that is, and this is what's happening. Are you listening, or are you not? All right, that is the question. Has the Lord deemed you worthy to have an ear so that you can hear, or are you just blowing it off like this is a fairy tale book? All right, very important things are being told to you from these scriptures. All right, it's time you start paying attention. If you are an Israelite, it's time you start acting accordingly. If you are Israel, okay, in Paleo Hebrew, Israel is Yah Shar Allah. Yah meaning he, Shar meaning prince, Allah meaning power, meaning you are the prince of power. And again, it's high time you start acting accordingly. All right, so that was just a quick reading in the King James of Revelation, the 13th chapter, verses 1 through verse 10. All right, Lord willing, we'll come back and we'll dive more into what we just read there, and we'll finish the chapter, okay, Lord willing, and bring out more verses, okay. So Lord willing, this came through as sincere and edifying, and with that, all praise to Yahweh, in the name of his son, Yahweh Shai, in the name of the Holy Spirit. All right, double honors to my elders, apostles, and the bishops of Great Millstone, otherwise known as GMS for short, but also known as the prophets of doom. These are where I have learned this truth, and where I am still learning this truth. And also shalom to the remnant and the elect of Israel. Lord willing, I am of that number, and Lord willing, we'll see you in the next video. Shalom.